So let me share my screen so that we can restart our lecture. Okay, so I welcome all of you once again formally for the second part of the lecture about digestive system. So I told you earlier that once before that lecture in the part 1 we have ended somewhere that with the help of the action of mouth and the associated organs present in the mouth, we convert the food into small ball-like structures which are called as bolus, and those were pushed into the next part of digestive system from the pharynx into the food pipe. The food pipe is also called as the esophagus, and once the food is there in that food pipe or called esophagus, it runs very fast right from the pharynx into the stomach with the help of a movement called as peristalsis. And peristalsis is a rhythmic movement, it's a systematic movement which helps in travel of food in one direction, which help in the direction the travel of the food within our digestive system. It not only helps the food to travel within the esophagus, but it also helps the food to travel in the stomach and in the intestine as well. But the movement is quite slower in intestine as compared to its movement in the esophagus. It's very fast here in the esophagus. And as I showed in the earlier lecture, the consecutive expansion and contraction of muscles push the bolus in a very fast speed within the food pipe. And if that rhythm is gone out of sync, and that will result in the reverse movement of food from the stomach towards the mouth, and this is what we call as anti-peristalsis, and it results in the vomiting. And it usually happens when something bad happens with the food, or when the food is not properly digested within the stomach because of so many reasons. And the most common of the reason you might heard is the food poisoning. So after that, the food travels from the esophagus into the digestive system. Esophagus is not involved in any sort of digestion, not mechanically or not chemically. So this is not the job of esophagus to help in the digestion. It just connects the mouth with the stomach. Once the food enters into the stomach, stomach is more or less like a muscular sac. It's a sac-like organ. It is made up of smooth muscles. I shared that information in body organization, that some stomach is made up of different types of tissues, and one of the tissue is called as smooth muscles. Smooth muscles are the muscles which can contract and relax without our will. So we can't control the movement of the smooth muscles, but they exist. Our brain can control their function. Heart muscles, another type of muscles called cardiac muscles, we can't control its movement with our conscious. Our brain indirectly controls the movement of the heart muscles. Similarly, the movement of the muscles present in the stomach is contracting and relaxing with the help of the smooth muscles. And those Smooth muscles are indirectly controlled by our brain, but we don't know. We can't control it without our will, without our conscious. That contraction and relaxation, you can guess, help in the mechanical breakdown of the food. That helps in squeezing the food and in converting the bigger components or bigger chunks of the food into simpler and smaller components, so that the enzymes and the other things can act more easily. The material produced in the stomach, the wall of the stomach produce different chemicals, enzymes. It is called as gastric juice. So the gastric juice plus food together with the action of the stomach convert the food into like a semi-digestible material called chyme. C-H-Y-M-E, chyme. The most important thing you need to know in this, which is present in the stomach, stomach is digesting the food for two mechanisms. The first, mechanical digestion. It is actually help in break down the food into smaller components physically. The second is a major way of digesting the food is using the chemicals produced by the stomach. The internal lining of the stomach is lined with certain glands which are called gastric glands. Anything related to stomach is usually associated with the name called gastric, like gastric gland. Gastric glands produce a solution which is called as gastric juice. It's a mixture of a lot of things. And if there is a pain in the stomach, it is called gastric pain, something like that. Gastric diseases. So that the internal lining of the stomach consists of special cells which are called as gastric gland cells. They produce gastric juice. And that gastric juice contains a lot of things. It's a mixture of different things. The most interesting thing present in the gastric juice is the acid, hydrochloric acid. The most important thing, interesting thing actually, is the acid. It is HCl, very famous one, HCl, hydrochloric acid, present in the stomach. It's very concentrated. It's that much concentrated that if you take out the HCl present in your stomach and place it on your palm, it will damage the palm a lot. It is that much concentrated. It will burn the palm. So there are a lot of things present in the gastric juice. The first interesting thing is an acid, and the other are the enzymes. Acid typically kills every living thing present in the food. Since we are eating and we are drinking water, it might contains some bacteria, some viruses, some other microorganisms, fungus, some spores. All those life forms will be killed in the presence of such a strong acid within the stomach. So because of the presence of that strong acid within all the life forms are dead. The enzymes which are present within the stomach, they are responsible for the digestion. They are responsible for the digestion of proteins. The enzymes which are present in the stomach, they are responsible for the digestion of protein. Proteins are the big molecules made up of so many small components called amino acids. They are amino acids, and these enzymes convert those long big chains of amino acids into smaller chains. So it is polypeptides into smaller fragments and eventually into single amino acids. So the enzymes present in the stomach is responsible for the conversion of that big molecules of proteins into simpler one. The name of the enzyme is trypsin. It is called as trypsin. It's trypsin. The trypsin is responsible for the digestion of protein. Now you need to think a very interesting example. If trypsin is responsible for the digestion of protein, then the cells which are producing trypsin, the ducts which are transporting the trypsin, they should be digested as well. They should be destroyed as well, because cells and ducts, they are all made up of proteins. But nature is very smart. Nature creates the trypsin in an inactivated form. In an inactivated form called trypsinogen. That inactivated version is not able to digest any protein. So when it is created, it is inactivated. Then it is transported, it is inactivated. Then it is poured into the stomach, it is inactivated. When it meets ACl, acid, low pH, when it finds acidic conditions, the trypsinogen converted into trypsin. And that trypsin then start digestion of proteins. So whatever the meat, whatever the proteinaceous part of your food will be digested in the stomach with the help of that thing. Another question you might be wondering, might be in your head, that if such a strong function of protein digestion is executed within the stomach, why stomach itself is not destroyed by the action of those things? So when the gastric juice is produced, it produces ACl and the digestive enzyme along with another chemical, you should find the name, which coats the internal lining of the stomach, which creates a layer in the internal lining of the stomach, protects the stomach from the severe action of the enzymes and ACl. So as long as the ACl is produced or the gastric juice is produced, it also produces the protective component or the protective layer as well. If because of some error, because of some problem or medical reasons, if a small part of that layer is damaged, if a scratch is there on that layer, or if the layer is very thin, you can theoretically guess what will happen. The stomach will start eating itself. The enzymes present in the stomach will start hitting and digesting the walls of the stomach, and it causes severe pain, and the disease is called as ulcer, stomach ulcer. This is called as the stomach ulcer. So this is a depiction of the stomach, and that is where it is present. So due to the action of the stomach, the protein part of the food is almost digested and converted into either simpler polypeptides or into amino acids. And it is in the form of a semi-solid liquid, which is called as skim. And then bit by bit, it is thrown or pushed into the next part of digestive system, which is called as small intestine. The next part, the small intestine. The small intestine is like, it's a convoluted, like this one, it's a convoluted duct. It has 3 different components, and that is fine if you do not remember the name of these 3 components. But the small intestine itself is made up of 3 different, I must say, regions. The first part is called as duodenum. You can choose to forget the name, okay? You just need to remember, because of the function of the small intestine, it is divided into 3 different fragments. The first part is called as duodenum. It is associated with other organs which helps in the digestion of the food present in the stomach. The first thing you need to know, the enzymes present in the stomach, they act as a low pH in the presence of an acid. Once it enters into the intestine, the other components of the food are also required to be digested. For example, proteins are digested in the stomach, but what about the rest of the things like carbohydrates and lipids? So the carbohydrates and the lipids are digested in the next part of digestive system, or in the small intestine, with the help of some associated organs. There are 2 famous associated organs present with the small intestine. The one is called as pancreas, you can see here. The other is this big thing. This is the liver. Liver is doing a lot of jobs, and one of the job of the liver is to produce bile. Bile is a liquid, greenish color liquid produced by the liver, which helps in the digestion of the fats. Very important. It helps in the digestion of fats. The bile is stored into a chamber called gallbladder, and from here a duct carries the bile into the small intestine. Sometimes some people develop stones in the gallbladder, and doctor surgically remove that thing. So in that case, whatever the bile is produced by the liver will be directly poured into the intestine. The good thing is that if you have a gallbladder, the liver can produce bit by bit bile, and it can be stored into that chamber until unless it is required during the process of digestion. I mean, if the food is there. So if there is no food, the liver can still produce the bile, and the bile can still be stored into the gallbladder. So when the food is there, it is poured into the intestine, otherwise not. But if the gallbladder is removed because of some disease and stones, then the liver will keep sending the bile into the intestine, whether it is required or not. Such people will find difficult. Some people feels that they will not be able to digest the fats very well after that surgery. And you can guess why. Doctors ask them not to have a food with a lot of fats, because they will not be able to digest it well because of the dysregulation of bile. The pancreas, on the other side, it has 2 portions. One portion of the pancreas is responsible to produce insulin. And I told you the insulin, and the job of insulin is to help in the digestion or in the metabolism of carbohydrates. It helps, it converts the free glucose in the blood into glycogen and store them into muscles and into liver. The other part of the intestine is involved in the digestion. it produces mixture of enzymes which helps in the digestion of the components of the food. They contains enzymes which can digest proteins. They contains enzymes which can digest carbohydrate like amylase. They contains enzymes which can digest the fats as well. So here the actual process of digestion is actually going on. All sorts of components are being converted chemically into simpler one. The proteins, the rest of the proteins, the remaining proteins are converted into amino acids. The fats are converted into fatty acids. The carbohydrates are converted into glucose. The big components converted into simpler components. And also it contains certain salts and other things, because the food which is coming from the stomach is highly acidic. So it should be neutralized. Its pH should be raised. So a lot of alkali is there in those enzymes, along with the enzymes. Also, the walls of the intestine is also protected in the same way as it is protected in the stomach, because to help to save from the action of the enzymes present in the stomach. So once it went through the first part of the small intestine, most of the components of the food are digested. Some of them took a little bit more time as compared to the others, like fats takes more time to digest as compared to the carbohydrate and proteins, and lots of proteins are digested within the stomach as well. So the fats usually, the digestion of fats and other components usually finished in the second part of digestive system. And then comes the last part of the small intestine. The last part of the small intestine contains finger-like projections. This is the side view of the small intestine. The last part of the small intestine contains finger-like projections like this one. They contains finger-like projections. So when the food is traveling, you can guess the food is now digested into simpler components. There must be amino acids, there must be fatty acids, there must be glucose, and also what else? The big undigestible part of the food. Because there are a lot of portion of the food which is not digested. It's also there, which is not digested. These finger-like projections contains blood capillaries. They contains blood capillaries. And this is the place where the things from the products of digestion crosses the barrier and enters into the blood. I mean, the amino acids, glucose, and the products of fats are absorbed by the blood capillaries. This villus or villi is a plural, villus is singular, helps in increasing the surface area, so the food can be digested more easily. Otherwise it will run all the way very easily without any absorption. It increases the surface area, the food will strike here, then here, then here, then here. So it will take more time and it get absorbed very easily. After that, the absorbed or digestive food is sent to the liver. That's very important. It's sent to the liver for organization and then to the rest of the body. And then to the rest. This is a very important vein called hepatic portal vein, which takes the digestive food from the intestine to the liver. Another important thing you should know at this time, that nowadays people are undergoing different types of surgeries, and I was wondering, I study data that people are spending more money in non-essential surgeries as compared to the essential surgeries. People are spending more money to enhance their features, called cosmetic surgeries and all other these things, as compared to the money which is as compared to the surgeries which are required to save lives. People use a special type of surgery to lose weight. Adnan Sami Khan, आपने सुना होगा, very famous celebrity, loses a lot of weight. Such type of surgeries actually bypass the intestine. I told you the intestine is responsible for the absorption. Some part is responsible for the absorption of carbohydrate. In some portion, usually amino acids are absorbed, and in certain other portion, the fats and carbohydrates are absorbed. So in case of Adnan Sami Khan and other people who lost serious weight because of the surgery, they clip that part of the intestine here and here. So what that means? They stop that portion of the intestine to absorb anything, and they place an alternate route, an alternate duct from the intestine to bypass that portion. So the food is coming, digestive food is coming from this side, and then it moves from here, bypassing that portion, and then reach here and then goes to the next. So this portion which is responsible for the absorption of fat is not utilized. So whatever he is eating, no matter how much fat he is eating, that fat is not going to be absorbed within the blood. It will bypass that portion and it start losing weight very quickly. This is not very, good as well. It has a drawback because the fats are also required for certain jobs. But that is something, a knowledge you need to know. Okay. So certain associated functions are there. I have explained them all. That what are their job? What is the job of gallbladder? And then it connects with the last part of the intestine called the large intestine. Remember one important thing. Large intestine is doing a lot of jobs. This is the connection. The small intestine connects with this large intestine. One part, second part, and then third part. And then from here, the undigested food goes out. Where there is a connection between the small and the large intestine, where there is a connection between the small and the large intestine, thank you. Okay, first is the question, SCL does not damage. Okay, you try to answer. Fazla was trying to answer. Okay. Sorry, मैंने भी देखा आपका message. It's not because of the muscles of the stomach. It is because of the layer which protects. Okay. So we are almost at the end of the session. I just want to give you one more bit of interesting information here, and then we will stop and then come back to the next session, question answers, and then this is a very important, I must say, system which you should know. A lot of general knowledge is there. So look at that. When a small and large intestine connects, there exists a finger-like projection. This one. This is called as appendix. This finger-like projection is called as appendix. It was used in the earlier times when we are not used to of having cooked food, because it produces an enzyme which help in the digestion of green vegetables. But since we are not dependent very much on the herbs anymore, so it is somehow useless. It has a finger-like projection. Sometimes a food particle mistakenly entered and trapped in this finger-like projection, और वो गलने सड़ने शुरू हो जाता है. It started getting bad and bad and bad. If the food particle is trapped here, that finger-like projection started swelling. The swelling was here. Inflammation हो जाती है. Lot of inflammation is there, and lot of pain is associated with this trouble. And the disease is called as appendicitis. So appendicitis is the name of the disease. So the doctor usually said appendix हो गया है, इसको appendix की दर्द हो रही है, and then they usually remove that finger-like projection to save the patient's pain life, and to help the patient to relieve himself or herself from the pain. And then food starts its journey to the last part of the intestine, which is called large intestine. So, welcome back, okay, to the final part of the digestive system. It's supposed to be a longer lecture. It should cover in 3 classes traditionally, but in online classes we do not talk for other things. Otherwise, you know, we need to talk on the all other things, so that helps us to finish the same thing in a longer period of time. So it's very composed type of lectures. So let's start the final portion of the digestive system, the large intestine. The large intestine is doing a lot of jobs as well. It stores the food for a certain period of time until unless it is like expelled from the body. It can store the food, and it can absorb water out of the food. How much water the large intestine will absorb, it actually defines the overall health of the digestive system and the availability of water in the food and in the body. If because of some error the large intestine started absorbing more water, और ये अक्सर लोगों को प्रॉब्लम होती है, it started absorbing more water, the food, undigested food, which is here, is in the form of called feces, will be very dry, and it result in the constipation. And you know, in the last part of the small intestine, most of the worthy materials, most of the important materials are absorbed by the blood in the villus, and whatever is left is now an undigested food. So it should be expelled or eliminated from the body. But the composition of water is maintained so that it can travel well and it can move outside the body more easily. If the water is absorbed too much, the feces become dry and it can cause constipation. If the water is not absorbed enough, it can result in diarrhea. So most of the time, both of these things are an indication that something is not normal in the digestive system. So the feces or stool was also stored in the last part of the intestine, which is called rectum, and then it is released and excreted through the anus. The large intestine is also the home of lots of important bacteria. It's a very weird news might be for you, but we are carrying hundreds of thousands of bacteria within our large intestine. It is their home, it is their world. And they are called as, sometimes when our digestive system is not working very well, doctors give us the probiotics. And they also ask us to have a lot of curd, because the curd contains certain bacteria which helps, and probiotics. Now, those probiotics actually help in the culture, help in the growth of those good bacteria which are living in our large intestine. It is their home. They are getting the food from whatever the undigested food out there, whatever is passing in front of them, they are getting their food out of it. We don't require any of those material because we want to expel them, and they get the food out of it. And in return, they gave us a lot of good chemicals like vitamins as well. And the presence of those bacteria, those healthy bacteria, is essential for the normal function of the digestive system. So if that thing is not there, remember, you might remember, whenever the doctor gave you antibiotics, आप लोगों को याद होगा, कॉमनली घर में भी बोलते हैं ऑगमेंटिन खा लो, गला खराब हो गया, इन्फेक्शन हो गई है, या इस तरह की कोई और एंटीबायोटिक खा लो, एमोक्सिसिलिन इस तरह का नाम है. Whenever the doctor gave you an antibiotic and you have that antibiotic for a day or so, you will start feeling trouble with your digestive system in the next day. Because that antibiotic is not only killing the bad bacteria, it's also killing the good bacteria as well in your digestive system. And it will take some time to get them back, to repopulate your intestine. So this is very important job done by the microbes present in the large intestine. So controlling the water, absorbing the water, giving good chemicals, getting good chemicals out of microbes, storing the undigested food for a certain period of time, and then expelling it. All that thing is required. Overall, now this is the time to understand the concept of the fiber in the food. A lot of things present in the food got digested. Proteins converted into amino acids, carbohydrates into glucose, fats into fatty acids, and glycerol. Makes sense. But whatever which we cannot digest, like cellulose, plants, leaves, green vegetables, most of them are cellulose. We can't digest them. We have no enzyme which can digest the cellulose. So that means it is like it will go all the way from the mouth to the anus, because we can't digest that portion of the food. That part of the food which we cannot digest is called as the fiber. So you might wonder why doctor asks us to have fiber rich food, why to have more fiber in our food. The reason why, if you have reasonable amount and portion of fiber in your food, that portion will not be digested and it will help your food to travel easily. It will help the bowel movement. They use the term bowel movement. The food will travel more easily. Otherwise, you will start having the troubles. For example, if you are having a barbecue party or tikka party, a good thing is that you should have some green vegetables out there as well, so that some undigestive components should be there which can help the meat to travel more comfortably within your digestive system. Okay, so that's all with the digestive system. Lots of diseases are associated with the malfunction of different organs of the digestive system. Ulcers, I have explained. If the protective layer is gone from the stomach or from the intestine, it will hurt a lot. That is called as ulcer. If something bad happened with the liver, it can cause trouble to the digestive system as well. Like if there's a liver cancer or hepatitis, it will affect the bile as well, and then the digestive system. And then what is diarrhea, what is constipation, I explained. Appendicitis, and then if Colon is the large intestine. Sometimes the walls of the large intestine started growing abnormally and they develop tumors, and they are called as colon. It is called as colon cancer, and it happens because of the consistent eating of unhealthy diets. It is also because of genetical reasons, but the main reason is to keep pushing or keep troubling your large intestine with unhealthy diet. If you're not having fiber, remember you are pushing the limits of your digestive system. If you are eating like in a more, I must say, you have all components of food present, all components, all ingredients of life present in your food. If it's a complete diet, then it will be easier for the digestive system to deal with the things. If you are eating only protein-rich food, it will cause other type of troubles. If you are dependent only on carbohydrate-rich food, it will cause another type of trouble. So you need to have a complete version of food in order to have the normal function of digestive system. So that's it for the digestive system. So the forum is now open for you people to have your questions. Okay, so I'm ready. You can ask, you can write, it's your choice. If you want me not to speak your name, please mention it before the question. Okay, अगर आपने बिल्कुल छुप छुपा के सवाल करना है, सीक्रेट सवाल करना है, तो you can. अगर आपको ये समझ आ गया तो I will be very very happy. अगर आपके पास कम सवाल हैं, and I can tell you that that this might be a little bit more than your syllabus, so don't worry, that's absolutely fine, because you should have a clear understanding about the digestive system. Of course, there are much more things we need to know, but that is good enough for a biology 100 student. Questions?
Sir, why only enzymes in the stomach are not enough for the digestion or the breakdown of food, and there is a need of the relaxation and contraction of the stomach muscles?
The contraction of the stomach do two things. The first, breakdown, and the other is the mixing of the ingredients. So if it is like if you're pouring something and you're not mixing it well, it will not going to complete the digestion. So that is absolutely necessary that it should be mixed and thoroughly properly. Okay. And sometimes, और मजे की बात बता दूं, digestive system की, sometimes when you eat a lot and you think a lot, like before iftari, टेबल के ऊपर देख रहे होते हैं, मैं ये भी खाऊंगा, इसके बाद फिर ये, इसके बाद फिर ये, फिर मैं नमाज पढ़ के आगे फिर ये शादी के खाना खुलने से पहले सोच रहे होते हैं क्या क्या पकाया इन्होंने, अच्छा ये भी बनाया, okay, I will eat this. Your brain calculate that you will about to have a lot of food. It will produce lots of gastric juice. That means lots of HCl, because it is expecting a lot of food. But you will not be able to eat that much naturally. So you are eating less and you are having more acid in your stomach. So at the end of the day, you will left with what? Which is called as acidity. The stomach is more like a, imagine, if you want to imagine it, it's like a balloon, like a tube, bicycle ki, gaadi ki, motorcycle ki tube. If you fill it, it will expand. If you fill it with the food, it will expand and then expand, then expand. It will getting like, it is like this with the food, it is like this. So with the food, it can expanded. Now you know the respiratory system as well. You know the floor of the chest cavity is called as diaphragm. It's responsible for the respiration. ये stomach diaphragm lungs को दबाती है, जिससे सांस लेते हैं. So chest cavity का floor and the stomach is here. If the stomach is get expanding, and you eat a lot, it will start pushing the diaphragm as well. And in that case, it will be a little bit difficult to breathe as well at that time, because of the stomach is like taking a lot of space. Some people are very good in eating. They put a lot of things in their stomach. They can digest it later on. sorry for this. Like if you remember cows and buffaloes, they kept on chewing after the eating. It is their way. When they are eating, इसको बोलते हैं जुगाली करना. When they're eating, they're not eating, they're just putting things in their stomach. They have a big stomach. वो आपने देखा होगा. ओजड़ी कुर्बानी में बाहर फेंके. They just put the things in their stomach. They do not worry at that time about chewing it well. ये grazing animals के लिए होता है ना कि दुश्मन ना आ जाए, शिकारी ना आ जाए, predator ना आ जाए, तो जल्दी खाना होता है. And after that, when they find a time, they take their food from the stomach back into the mouth, chew it, and then put it back. वो chewing gum नहीं चबा रही होती. They are actually getting the food back from the stomach, chew, and then put it back. They are doing it for that. G. You should expect me. मैंने अभी आपको send नहीं किया, आपका group discussion की division. Any question? फिर मैं इस पे बात करता हूँ. So I will make your groups. Okay. एक और question है. फाजिला question है.
Sir, appendix में food end up कैसे करता है जो फिर उसको swelling और disease cause करता है?
Small intestine को pour होना है large intestine में. At their junction, there is another finger-like projection. Traditionally, typically, the opening of that finger-like projection is closed. So accidentally, because of some error, if the opening is a little bit open, it actually the food is trapped in that finger-like projection. Now the food will not go anywhere because it's like trapped. It's a dead end. तो food गलने सड़ने लग जाएगी ना, food खराब होने लग जाएगी थोड़ी देर के बाद. It started getting bad, और bacteria भी होते हैं, started getting bad. So that caused infection. Our body started feeling something bad is there. वो उसको कत्ल करने के लिए, उसको मारने के लिए वहां पर दौड़ेंगे आके. वो inflammation होएगी, and then appendix become bigger and become very toxic. And we can't get rid of it because it's just a dead end. So it is removed after that. That is why.
Just sir, earlier times mein appendix was used for the digestion of green plants. So sir, why can't it digest cellulose?
No. In order to digest cellulose, you need to have an enzyme which is called cellulase. That cellulase is produced by that appendix. तो जब तक appendix काम करता था, हम हरी सब्जियां, हम भी गाय बकरियों के साथ फिर के खा सकते थे. Then our dietary habits changed. We started eating meat as well. We became omnivorous. It is started getting useless, and eventually it is now of no use.
Thank you, sir.
So, हमारे पास कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं है. एराज, फाजिला, मीर.
सर
मीर के पास सवाल है. जी मीर शाबाश. मीर तेरी डीपी बहुत प्यारी है माशाल्लाह. चला पूछ ले.
थैंक यू सर. सर एक बात की समझ नहीं आई कि ये चले अपेंडिक्स में फूड तो चला जाता, लेकिन देखा गया है कि मतलब काफी केसेस के अंदर ये बहुत नुकसानदेह हो जाता है अगर उसे रिमूव ना किया जाए. तो अपेंडिक्स में ऐसी क्या चीज होती है जो उसे इतना खतरनाक बना देती है?
अच्छा, वो फूड पार्टिकल टॉक्सिक नहीं होता. जब वो फूड पार्टिकल एक डेड एंड में चला जाता है, let me draw that thing. Okay, यहाँ पर राइट बोर्ड का ऑप्शन भी है. मैंने कभी एक्सपेरिमेंट करने का टाइम नहीं है मेरे पास. Let me draw that thing for you. Okay, can you see it now? I am going to draw it. मीर आप देख पा रहे हैं ना? So
yes sir.
Small intestine from this side, large intestine from. So this is poured into here. Okay, so food is coming from this side, and then it should like enters here. Should go there. इस जगह के ऊपर at this place there is a finger like projection, a dead end. The opening is supposed to be closed, okay, but because of some physical activity, some unfortunate situation, a food particle which is moving from here to here is trapped inside. Now this is not a toxic stuff, this is not poison, but since it can't go here and there, it is trapped. So after some period of time, the trapped food particle will started, deteriorating, it started decomposing, and that is bad. But still it should not cause risk to the health. अभी भी इसको जान तो नहीं लेनी चाहिए ना, जो अमीर का सवाल है कि जान को खतरा पड़ जाता है. When it started getting bad, our immune system sensed something bad is there. So our immune system came and started fighting with this thing. We sent the cells, fighter cells, to go and fight with that bad thing. Now this bad thing is like part of our own body, and it is getting bad and bad because of these fighting and battles. Our immune cells cannot destroy the appendix, it will live. When they try to fix that thing, it will getting expanded, ये बड़ी हो जाती है और बड़ी हो जाती है, ऐसे करके बड़ी expand हो. Contains lots of dead cells and other material, और वो सारे dead cells and other materials become poisonous because of the battle between our immune system and that bad thing. So if अगर ये फट जाए, जिसको कहते हैं ना, अगर ये टूट जाए या फट जाए, then it can cause, एक तो ये पेन बहुत ज़्यादा करती है, दूसरा those toxic chemicals after that they can cause big trouble to the person. ठीक हो गया? Okay.